All right, so we made our spoons and all that sort of thing. Just the very much introductions to working with the form working environment, the form edit environment of Fusion 360. So tonight I want to take that a bit further. We're going to make some more detailed utensils and such. Again, this assignment is intended for you to just play, make whatever you want. And again, you want to say your kitchen utensil is a broadsword slash spatula, cool, or a broad spatula. I don't know. I've seen people make the Enterprise as a pizza cutter, that sort of thing. More power to you. But to keep it more at least immediately achievable, we're gonna make like a kitchen knife and a spatula, mainly because I want to go over using things like how to weld vertices together. So that's the whole thing with this uh, method of working with the form environment. We talked a little bit about when we delete faces and such, you end up with just what's called a surface, which is essentially a form made up of just the surface. There's no solid mass in between. It's just what exists at the surface. Now, from that, you can do what's called weld vertices. And basically, you have a hollow shape, and you can bring like endpoints and such together, and it snaps the form closed and cinches that up. You can also do things like I'm going to show you tonight. Insert edge, which is just dividing up the faces, adding a little more detail. You can subdivide them, which adds that in paired amounts. And then you can also do things like crease and uncrease, which is make a crease. Yeah, mind blowing. But when you're working with rounded forms and such, that's how you would figure out how to make like a sharp edge, or at least a way. So let me hop over to Fusion and let's go through some ideas and such here. So I've got my wooden flying spoon and spork here, which we did last week. Hooray. But I want to show you how to do something more stabby. Like this basic like chef's knives and such. The main thing with this model is how this was done is you're still using the thicken tool, but instead of like we did for the spoon to use a rounded edge, either a sharp edge, and I don't mean that sharp edge, like the cutting edge of a knife. I mean like it's a perpendicular angled edge, or actually in this case, no edge, and then you fill in the space between. So, new model, go from here. All right, so let me save. Example, nope, knife and spatula. Oh, I cannot spell. But stupid fingers. Hey, I think I spelled it right. All right, so again, if you want to import a canvas to work from, obviously that makes sense. Go for it. In this case, I'm just going to freeform it. So to help myself out, I'm going to go ahead and throw out some new components right from the get-go. Knife, shouldn't have activated it. Whoopsie daisy. And just so I have the other one, don't want to activate that one. This one, I'm going to say spatula, as that'll obviously be in a minute. So start with the knife, activating that component. So again, you want to say start with the sketch. Not this time. Not this time. Go to create form. All right, so we're in the form workspace. Yes, you could start with creating a sketch and draw that out and extrude it. That's going to be a little bit contrary to how I want to work this time, so no. What instead I want to do is work with a plane. So I'm going to start on the XY plane. That should have snapped in place, but it didn't, so that's irritating. And plane is created by just using a rectangular form. Now, you have some options. If I don't hit enter, I can go over to the work pop-up, the toolbox, and I can say either center point rectangle or 2-point rectangle. In this case, I actually would like to use a 2-point rectangle. And this is what I'm going to draw out to make the blade. That's going to be an enormous knife. I don't know. Sure, you know what? Why not? Let's make a kitchen broadsword. Because fun. 400 by 100. Bam. Now I hit enter before I could add any features here, meaning like add any additional faces. If you needed to, you could come in with actually this tool right here, insert edge, and I can either click one or double click and it picks both of those, and you can see this green line appears. This actually creates more edges, so I can do it asymmetrically. So if I wanted to keep this sort of thing, I could exactly that, keep this shape asymmetrical, or had I created it with edges and edges or faces in mind first, would have been better. Something like, let me do it again. Yes, same plane. Let me just start one right here. And you see when I hit the second my second point, that's when the other option, the two other tool options come up. So I could say like add more faces this way. Let's say, I don't know, 5. You can see how it's going to add faces equally across the length of the form. And of course, with faces, you can add more that way. 2, 3, 5, whatever. It's up to you. Now, in this case, I do not want to add symmetry because I'm not working symmetrically across the y-axis on this. I'm actually going to be using this as a template, or more of a essentially a sketch that I'm going to extrude upward in a different manner this time. So you can see how I can add more faces, all of that, but I don't want that right now. So we'll just resize to the shape that I got. Now I'm working on the blade first. All right. So from here, I can go to edit form, our old friend, and just start playing around. I'm going to use vertex for first, or vertex selection rather, and grab like a single point, draw this out, or I could grab a couple of them, pan, draw this out, instantly create more of like a saber. Why not? If I wanted to select my edge, I could select one or double click, and it's going to select the whole length. Say I want to drag this down and out, or rather maybe rotate this and get something more like so. See where I'm going with this. But this still has this edge. So one of the things I would like to avoid is I want this to be a little bit of a smoother curve. I showed you what can happen if you delete a vertex on the spoon. Select that vertex, delete, and yes, it warps everything, but now I have a more even curve because I just took the corner out of the box. So now there's no corner there. You have more of a smooth sweep. Is this the only way to do this? Absolutely not. This is just a pretty quick and simple way to do this. And you'll see what happens if I just go quickly to finish form. It alters the faces just so it translates it to a solid. Now, again, this is merely a surface. It has no thickness whatsoever. If I open the project tree here, you can see the orange open cylinder paper, or open cylinder form here, or icon. It's a surface. Doesn't actually have real dimension to it. So let me go back in, edit into the edit workspace, or the form workspace. All right. Now, if you are in fact making more of an actual kitchen broadsword, well, I'm going to need a tang on this. Tang is just what runs through the handle. Those of you that are also taking knife making. So I'm going to go to edit form, and I'm going to, you can alt extrude faces as well. Press and hold alt, drags outward, instant knife tang. Sweet. Now I'm going to get that curve there. If you want to adjust that curve, you can of course do some more face delete, or some more some more vertex deletion and such. But there we go. Okay, so I got my kitchen murder weapon. Now, in this case, I'm going to use the thicken tool to add thickness to this, obviously, thicken. But, whereas before, oh, I accidentally hit the insert edge. I want to use thicken for the face. How thick should we make this? Let's make it beefy, 5 millimeters. Now, again, it is showing this reference box as just the display mode. That's all. Now, ideally, you'd probably think I want to make this a sharp edge, and I'll show you what happens. If I hit OK, what that did is it simply made that like it's a straight extrusion, just took that straight on up. But I want to be able to make this front edge sharp. So let's go back, Control Z, go back to thicken, and instead of sharp, I'm going to switch to no edge. Select OK, and now it's just two planes floating one above the other. That's all. Now what I can do though is I can use the tool called Weld Vertices. If I go to Modify, Weld Vertices, and as it says here, joins two or more vertices. Pretty straightforward. So like the idea of welding, your welding actually fuses things together. That's why it's called weld. All right. So you can see when I select that tool, highlights all the vertices. Pretty simple. You have a couple different weld modes. You have vertex to vertex, which means like our joint tools or anything like that that moves things into positions. What you select first is what will move. What you select second is to where it will move to. So if I use the vertex to vertex, you can see select one, select the other, and this does need to go in order. It snaps that top one down. And you can see, let me orbit over here a little bit more clearly. There you go. So it moved that top one downward. Now, that works fine if you also want to create something like a single beveled edge. We're not going to get into too much knife making tonight, just more of the, should you care to know the terminology, there you go. So that means it's all going to snap from one to the other. Now, what happens if I swap those? If I go from bottom to top? Yeah, it's going to reverse it. You're going to start getting some funky results here. So instead of that, let me cancel this and go back to weld vertices. Actually, I can right click and go back up to weld vertice. Come on. Now, instead of vertex to vertex, I'm going to go vertex to midpoint. So what that does is it just meets them both in the middle. So in this case, that's ideal. So still have to go in progression. So top and bottom, or bottom and top, doesn't matter in this case. So now this is snapping them right in the middle. You can see. So that's the difference on how that tool works. Whoops, didn't mean to do that. Now, right now, it is going to square everything up until I finish doing this work. So I'm going to keep snapping this around. And you can see, obviously, that's kind of rounded. Not exactly stabby style. It's more of foam attack sword. Now, yes, that drew it all the way back. It's okay for now. What I can do, though, the other tool on this is keep creases. Select that. And it'll make them sharp. Probably should have had that first, and then it might have left it sharper first. Let's try that instead. One more time with feeling. There we go. So if you have it checked first, it will keep that edge sharper. Still getting some funky results until I finish. There we go. So because I left that checkbox checked first before I made the selection, made that whole edge come in at a much sharper taper and meet at an actual crease. If you select it after the fact, it only functions going forward. So that does not retroactively make changes to the selection process. So be aware of that. All right. I just wanted that edge right there. The rest I want to leave sharp, or I want to leave open, because now what I could do is fill those up. So how do I patch all that? Literally fill hole. It's very straightforward. So I'm going to select two edges and keep going, keep going. It's going to select all the way around. Hopefully if I double click, no. Sometimes if you double click, it'll go all the way through. Other times, not so much. There we are. Work your way around. Make sure you got all the faces. And the reason it's not closing up yet is I don't have all the edges selected. Rather tedious, I know. All right. Now reduce star. Nope. Fill star. Collapse. Why is that not working now? Awesome possum. Hey. Great. Now it's not working this time. Yeah, that's about right. Figures. Anytime you try to do a model and do something slightly differently, that's the time it doesn't work. All right, fine. Tell you what, you run into that problem and it doesn't work for you, back up, and we're going to work a different way. So standard procedure, sometimes things don't work right. All right, so what I'm going to need to do here then is go back before I did the thicken, reapply thicken, and instead of no edge, I am going to do a sharp edge. Okay. Now that did in fact basically extrude it upwards, and there we are. So what I'll have to do now instead to work around that issue, I'm just going to go around and delete some faces. I'll end up with the same result. Just know that sometimes you got to work a different way. All right, there we go. That worked. All right, so now I go do the same, repeat the process, go to weld vertices, where to go? There you are. And yes, I'm leaving these are good. This is going to create some voids. The fill hole will work better on that. All right, so we do want to go vertex mid to midpoint. Boop boop. And there we are. So sometimes things happen and you have to work your way back around. All right, now what happens if there is already a face here? Snaps it in place. We're good. Or it'll delete that face. It's hard to see. I'm scrolling too far away. In that case, it did something funky. No, we're okay. All right. Okay. So if you run into those problems, you might have to back up and do it again. Now, right now, this is currently open. It's hard to see. Let me switch color modes. Shift in. Still kind of hard to see, but you can view inside. If you run into that, that's where you do go to the fill hole. Select the edge, and it already snapped. All right, now that curved it around, making more of an elf blade here. I don't want that. Keep creases. Now that automatically sharpened it right to there. Don't know if that's exactly what I want, but I'm okay with it. You can try up some different options here. The fill stars, this is too small to really make much of an issue or much of a difference here. Same diff in this case. I guess we'll just use the reduce thing. Definitely keep creases, so I make that sharp tag. Okay. So there you go. Ran into an okay thing. Double check. Never hurts to preemptively go to finish form. See what happens? Ah, there we are. All right. So I did run into some errors, got some self-intersects. Okay. This is where we're talking about error issues. If you run into errors, what you do is go to utilities, repair body. You have to select the body, and these points, these stars are going to show up, and it's going to show where the issues are. Probably also, yep, up here in the front where I did collapse that point too. So let's try what happens when you hit auto repair. I swear, often enough, it does absolutely nothing. All right, so did you fix or no? Let's try finish form. Same. All right, still the same problem. All right. Well, let's have a look. So it looks like what's happening here is because when it curved around, it made this sharp area here. I can't really see what's happening, but it looks like an odd shadow. So what you should do if you run into an error like this is where it is easier to work if you switch to the different display mode. This is not changing anything. You go to the utilities, the display mode up top, we talked about last class with the spoon. You just are switching to box display. And sometimes that will help you see the problems a bit more clearly because it's not automatically rounding things out. I didn't change anything there. Uh-oh. My computer just froze. There we go. Not sure what I am or I'm not seeing here. So that, I've not run into that before. As always, something new. All right. Well, one thing I can definitely tell is if you look closely here, this line here curves very wildly. So what we might have to do is just delete some faces here and then reapply them. So, okay. So it's in display mode. This changes nothing. As far as it's not actually physically making any alterations to the form. I am merely changing how I look at it. So just going to try. Let's try deleting that edge. All right. That made it kind of funky, but it looks like there's something kind of, just delete all of that. There we go. All right. So I'm not really sure what the problem was, but let's try going ahead and just fill hole from there. All right. So that did the exact same thing. I don't know. Let's try it. Yeah. Return. Repair body. Yeah. That body. Okay. Great. So awesome. Running into the exact same problem. Yeah. All right. That's about right. Okay, so that should have repaired, but I don't know if it did or not. What? I don't know. One. Great. All right. Well, so I'm going to do a little bit more searching on here. I'm going to pause this recording just so it's not me just fumbling through some things as I try to work the problem. So give me a second. Okay, so I worked the problem a little bit, and to repeat it, ultimately what the issue is here, at least what I assume it is looking at this surface when I deleted that corner here and added the filled in the space. This has created a very strange occurrence with the edge here, and this curvature is becoming, let me zoom in a bit here. It's not overly clear, but in silhouette, it is showing it to be self-intersecting. As you can see, just a little edge is coming up and over, and it's not overly visible, nor is it overly visible of what the solution might be. So what I tried, and it did work, is I went to insert edge. So sometimes if Fusion gets a little confused when it's trying to take over and make some of these curvatures more curved, sometimes what it needs is a little bit more of some actual information. So what that takes place, or what ends up happening, is you need to add an edge. So I'm gonna select right here, and you see this green line, that's where it's going to add an edge. And because this is all extruded off the, or thickened off of the same plane, it's going to do the same to the bottom. I'm going to leave it at default. 0.5 is right in the middle. 0 is at the starting edge. 1 is at the next adjoint, or the next parallel edge, which would be over here. So 0.5 is right in the middle. Hit OK. And that just kind of helped relieve that line there. So now when I orbit down, you can see there's no more problem there. There's no more overlap. Testing again, finish form, and it worked. So hot dang. When I go back around, it automatically resolved the issue that I was having up here. So that is going to work. Great. So essentially, that would be the knife I wanted to make. I'll just go back to Shift in to give it back to appearance mode. From here, I do want to make a handle. Now you could make these two separate things. It does not have to be all on the same form body. You can if you want, or you can make a separate one, because how I'm going to make this is I'm going to make two separate form bodies and then just join them together, or rather appear to join them together. So I'm going to start another form, same spot, origin disappeared because it did. Select there. Does not always automatically snap like making a solid does. So in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do again, creative plane, 2D point. I'm going to start just here in the corner, but I want to make that a little bit lower down. You can always move this around. So I just want to make this a little bit larger. That'll work, something like that. Great. Okay. Now in this case, I do want to make it a little bit more complex, because I'm going to add curves to this. So yeah, sure, that'll work. I can kind of shrink it down a little bit. Anything that sort of kind of makes the point. Sure. All right. Hit OK. Still no symmetry to this. And as I orbit down, you can still see the ghost of the previous form. We're working right there. Great. All right. So from here, I'm going to go edit form again. And by vertices, I'm going to select either ors, so I can make it kind of curvy. That's really it. Select OK. If I decided I should have added one more face, well, you could either add an additional line right there, or I could extrude this line out further. I would like to add more lines right there. Hey. So there we go. I'm going to grab again that point and just drag that in so it kind of looks more the case. There we go. That'll work. Pretty close, or at least close enough for what I want it to do. All right. Now I do want to thicken this and all that such. So add thickness to it. Let's say I made it 5mm before, so let's make it a little bit beefier. Let's just say 10. Okay. Now in this case, I want to have a soft edge like the spoon. I want that to be more rounded. As is, great. Okay. Hit OK. Now that did not really extrude nearly as far as I thought it would. So let's Control Z that, or again, it didn't extrude, I'm sorry, thicken. So let's do it a little bit more. 10mm is pretty weak for a handle, so let's say 30. That seems a bit more realistic. All right. Now, the problem is, again, it's going to round out everything over here. But this is where playing back and forth with creases and such can really come into play. So I can leave it rounded elsewhere and then come in, say, like with a crease, and sharpen these faces, or these edges rather, and make that edge sharp. Doesn't have to be all the way around. You could also deselect and let some be more curved or vice versa. Totally up to you, obviously. Now, this is not centered in the center of the blade. We'll have to move this manually, but pretty close. Hit OK, super duper. You can, of course, add additional features as you please, meaning like we could go back and say, you know, the edit form, select a face, and I don't know, let's press Alt and extrude, and to make some kind of, I don't know, blade guard, or I don't know, thumb handle, thumb hold, I don't know, whatever. Again, we're making kitchen weaponry at this point. Whatever. There you go. But you see what I'm talking about. Again, I can play around with scale and all that, or I can make some edges sharper. That, because I accidentally still had all that selected, it's going to make all of that sharper. That looks funky. Let's try just that edge. You can select just singular edges, that sort. Heck, we can even continue all of that. Make my whatever the heck that is guard. Sure. Why not? All right. And yep, kitchen weaponry, go. Again, this is extremely basic, but just showing you how you can play around with these different shapes. Hit OK. Now, like I said, the issue is this is not going to slap it right in the middle. So I'm going to have to select this object. Nope, just to that one, body 2. And let's go ahead and label that handle. And blade. All right. So now when I select the handle, we'll just use move. And if you use whole numbers, it should snap pretty much in place. Super duper. Last thing is, if we're trying to make this semi-realisticer, yeah, totally a label or a term. I want to put some pins in this. So I'm going to use, let's hide the handle. And I'm going to use project to make a sketch of just the tang here. Hit OK. Hide the handle. Super. Let's create a line, or let's create just a reference line. Smack in the middle. Move my cursor up the edge until the triangle appears, which is the midpoint. Straight across. Sure. Right there. Great. I'm going to select that line, press X, so it's a construction line. And I'm just going to add a couple of circles, somewhere-ish. Let's say a 10mm pin. Make another one somewhere-ish over there. Ugh. There we are. Hit OK. All right. Now I'm going to re-expose everything and extrude those 2 sketches. Can't select them very easily. Ugh. Come on, you jerk. You can't get at it now. Sometimes maddening. All right, and what I want to do is extrude. Let's just say instead I want it to go all, and it should go all the way up through. But I want that to be symmetric, so it goes all the way through on both sides. And instead of cut, I want to, well, actually I do want it to cut, but I also want to create new bodies. So let's just say instead we'll say new body, joint, or hit OK. Now we have circles going straight up through cylinders that already match the curvature of the handle. And then if we want to make this accurate, because, why not? Let's use a combine of target body of both of those. And then, it's not going to let me do that. So we'll use target body is the handle. And I want my 2 pins as my cutting tool. And make sure to keep tools. There we go. Cool. All right. Throw an appearance on. Oh, let's see here. Why not the completely unusable golden blade of kitchen. And we'll have a snazzy, oh, ooh, walnut. Oh, got to download it first for reasons. There we go. Sweet walnut handle. And of course, you got to go with some bronze pins. We'll go with patina for that. Oop. All right. So there is our golden kitchen blade of apparently very awkward elfin origin. So, had to work our way through a couple of problems there, but sometimes that's what you got to do. Ultimately, the issue was where it was just giving us that error, just needed a bit more subdivision, which means we just added an edge into that spot. Where did I put that? Insert edge, and that helps. And that helped the problem. So, going to pause there, and then we're going to work on making a potentially less battle-ready spatula, or not. Okay, so like I said, we're finishing with our kitchen weaponry here, and I want to show you how to do something a bit more straightforward or ish. So, gonna make a spatula. So we know what a spatula looks like, just the kind of general sort of thing. So same deal. Create form, XY plane. If I can select it. There we are. All right. So again, I'm going to work with create plane. Same diff, only this time I'm going to make it with a center point rectangle, smack in the middle, not for any real particular reason other than seems about right. So I'm going to start with something kind of more rectangular, probably much too large. Holy crap, that'd be big. Let's say 150 by 100. All right, that seems semi-reasonable. Oh, I meant to do the other way. Oop, not 1,000. Oh my God, that's way too big. Okay, reasonable-ish. I forgot to, dang it. I hit enter, you get a little too punchy and do that there. All right, so 100 by, nope, did it again. 150 by 100. Okay, do not hit enter. Come on. Jeez. I'm gonna keep getting this backwards. Okay. And then it changes. Great. Some of the tools are rather frustrating in direct contrary or act directly contrary to how it's usually would work. Just because frustration. Okay, so I clicked but did not hit enter because I want to dial back the number of faces. So let's say, ooh, one's a little bit too little. Let's say 2 and 1. Let's say 3. Okay. Actually, no. Let's go back the other way. There we go. Show you why. Okay, hitting OK. So basically, spatula, you understand just the kind of scrapey, all that kind of fun. So obviously we can tweak this from here. Standard procedure, edit form, go by edges. I'm going to double select that one. Let's go ahead and apply some symmetry first. Select faces internal. There we are. It's going to automatically snap. Select vertex. No, not internal symmetry. Oh, because I have 3. Fine. We'll just leave it and I'll just have to be careful with it. I can't put internal symmetry because I have 3 here. So we'll be cautious. By edge, the reason I'm doing this is just because I want to rotate these, I don't know, 10 degrees. That seems reasonable. Doing the same over here. Want to double click. What the heck was that? -10. No, not move. It's what happens when you try to speed run through some things. Double click. -10. There we are. Okay. So you get the idea. It's a spatula. Sure. Scrapey. From here, I'm going to, again, use edit form. I'm going to select this edge, but I'm going to control or alt move. So that creates a stretch point. Let's say 200. That is a significant spatula. All right. That works. But what I want to do is I want to select some faces, and from here, I'm going to rotate it upwards. So this is just going to be a pretty straightforward thing. Only problem is, obviously, I'm rotating from there. Not great. So let's move this up so it's a little bit sharper and getting kind of awkward here. Now, this is where the form workspace kind of gets a little funky. Obviously, I could use soft modifications if I need to. Let's change that, hit OK. And instead, I'm just going to go back and forth and using like the crease tool. And there you go. So even though that was all funky, as soon as I put the crease in, we're good. Brings it back. Now that dropped my point down lower than I needed it to, meaning that that is below level. So sometimes you just kind of have to fuss around with it to get things to where you want them. Great. Okay. All right. Frankly, that works. That's pretty much what I wanted. Just a really basic thing. And before I finish this out, I want to add some thickness to it. Select, and I don't know, a 2 millimeter. Sure, that's probably a bit thick, but whatever. I'll leave this as a sharp thickness, and there we go. So this is an easy way to, obviously, if I try to create this with a sketch and extrude this, I wouldn't be able to extrude this on both these levels the same way. Now, if I go to finish form here, I want to make a handle. But if I try to make all this separately, then move stuff, yada, yada, it just becomes a nightmare. So what you can do here is I'm going to create a form, but I can make this, or that might be more of a pain. Tell you what, instead of create form, there we go. This is where I could say create a sketch, and instead of selecting these faces or anything, or the planes, this is where we can select a plane. No, I want to select a plane. There we go. So I'm going to work off of that, but it's already not letting me. So if it's not letting you select, because sometimes even though this is a flat plane, works pretty well, sometimes Sketch will not align to the actual shape there. So what you can do, I'm just going to delete that sketch there. This is where some of the other construction planes come in, and I'm going to just create construction plane at an angle. Or let's see, tangent face plate. No, that's not going to work well enough. Let's see if that works. At an angle, great. So I'm making a plane at angle, and rather than selecting an angle and everything, I can use an edge, and not quite where I want, but it is at the right angle. Change that to 90 degrees up. There we go. Now I have a plane built right off of that, essentially an extrusion, but off of that form that I just made. So this is how you could make some shapes, just building things based off of what you've already built. Gets a little funky sometimes, but that's just kind of the way sometimes these things go. So, all right, now I can create my sketch, select that plane. It's going to snap to, as you can see, it looks like it's still above top, but it's not actually, it's actually matching at here. If you mess up, say like, oh, I hit top and it flattened out. Oh no, how do I get back to aligning my view to the actual form? You go to fit, or you go to no, fit to, view to, come on. I want to go to zoom, trying to get to, come on. There we go. Look at, I always get that one backwards. Only problem is there we go. All right, so you go to look at. It's another one of those terms that Fusion finds its own vocabulary. But either way, my view is now snapped to exactly that. All right, cool. There we go. I like to use project just to copy that shape. There we go. Hit OK. That way the body doesn't really get in my way. If you want, obviously hide the body. Why did it disappear? Did it not copy it? There we go. I guess I didn't hit enter the right way. All right. So this is, again, just a way to create any kind of shape. All right. I don't know. Let's create a offset of that line. I don't know. Draw upwards. Sure. Let's say 10 millimeters wider. Okay. And I don't want that whole thing because that's rather significant. Let's say about halfway down. Sure. Trim the rest off. Trim, trim, chop, chop. Great. Add some fillets. to my spatula handle. Sure, that seems reasonable-ish. And we'll make 2 different fillets sizes, selecting one and the other. And I don't know, 20. Let's make it smaller. Just finding ways to make that a little bit different-y. Nope, not 35, 25. Okay, whatever. Okay. Sure, that works. Finish sketch, same deal that we did before. I can just extrude this handle. I want both of them. And let's unhide that body, and let's go ahead and extrude symmetrically. I don't know, what was it? What was reasonable? 30? 30 apparently is unreasonable. I want overall length, 30 millimeters. I want it to form new body. I guess 30 is a bit much on this, so let's say 20. Cool. All right. And then just a final fillet on both those faces. I don't know, 10. And that pretty much makes it a bit roundy. All right. And there you go. You could obviously then create the other features like we did before, modifying the spoon, create a sketch. And I see I cannot select surfaces, even though it is flat. It's not letting me select that surface. So this is why I'm showing you this. You run into some issues sometimes with, even though your form, the form body you created, form object is flat, it doesn't necessarily register, and sometimes you are not able to select on those surfaces. So just working from there, all I want to do is just create a couple of features here. I don't know. Let's say 100 by, I don't know, 10, 150. And that's too much. Sure, 100. That works. Great. And let's just create some fillets around. Oops. Yeah, we're good. Often very hard to select through that face or the body. Again, just hide stuff. If you run into problems, it's just giving you trouble. Yeah, just hide it. That's all right. And I just want to create multiples using the rectangle pattern. I'm going to select the sketch. Yep. I want 3 going in symmetrical directions, and boop. Cool. All right. Finish that up. Oops, what happened? Totally threw off my, oh my God, where's my view? Jeez. Totally threw off where I was. And then final thing, just want to extrude. Come on. Those sketches. Why is it not letting me select those sketches? Running into just all the problems tonight. What is going on? Why can't I select the sketch? I don't know. Okay. I think we've just run into. So, yeah, that's a sketch. That sketch. Okay, great. Why is that locked? That is funky. Okay, cool, great. Okay, I have no idea why it's not allowing me to select these sketches. Anyhow, the plan was simply to use that sketch and extrude just like we did for the other utensils, or for the, there we go, for the spoons there. So I'm not entirely sure why it's not letting me select it, why this sketch is locked. And it's just for some reason not allowing me to select it. So okay, if you run into that, I guess we'll figure something out. But essentially, I just wanted to show you how you could create bodies and such based off of reference forms, while obviously sketch or obviously form elements don't always register as selectable to sketch on surfaces and things like that. So I don't know, we'll throw on the old appearance and we'll have a match set of that form. these things keep hiding my tool. Okay, so spatula. Okay, there you go. So aside from I'm not sure why the sketch wasn't allowing me to select it, easy way to make some stuff.